Chosen one, before this message goes any further, I need you to understand exactly why it found you tonight. The word about to be spoken over your 2026 season was held back from you on purpose. Your father placed it behind a door no human hand could open, raised a shield around it that no enemy in the unseen realm could pierce, and carried it himself through every silent month you have walked through, waiting for the exact hour when your heart would be still enough to receive what he has been forming for you. That hour is right now. Do you feel how specific this is? It is not a general blessing poured over a crowd. It is not a comforting word stretched thin across many lives. It is one sealed promise, formed in silence, refined in waiting, written under your name, long before the foundations of this world were laid. So set the noise aside. Settle into this seat. The seal that guarded your blessing is being lifted in this exact hour, and what is on the other side of it cannot be reached by anyone except the one for whom it was sealed. That one is you. And before I take you a single step deeper, I want to pause with you for one moment. Everything I share with you over the next half hour is completely free. But if at some point your spirit tells you there is more, your mind needs in order to receive what 2026 is bringing, the door for that is in the description and the pinned comment below. Follow it only if you feel led. Now listen to what I am about to describe and see if any of it matches what you have been living through. You have noticed that for months now, your emotions arrive in waves you cannot explain. Peace in the morning, sadness by the afternoon, a quiet hope by the evening, and none of it lines up with what is actually happening in your day. That is not chemistry. That is your spirit, responding to something your mind has not yet been told. You have noticed that the places that used to feel like home no longer feel that way. The same rooms, the same people, the same conversations, and somehow the words pass through you without landing. That is not coldness on your part. That is what happens when the season inside you changes faster than the season around you. You have noticed certain numbers, certain dates, certain words, finding you in patterns that feel too tight to be accidental. The year 2026, showing up in 3 unrelated places in one afternoon. The same phrase in a song, in a conversation, in something you read, all in the same week. That is not coincidence. That is heaven leaving fingerprints. And you have noticed the dreams. Dreams of doors with your name written across them. Dreams of envelopes you are trying to open. Dreams of a key in your hand that you do not remember picking up. That is not your subconscious recycling images. That is a message being delivered while the noise of your life is finally quiet enough for you to hear it. Let me tell you about a woman I will not name. She waited 7 years. 7 years of praying the same prayer, watching others receive what she had asked for first, wondering if her name had been forgotten in heaven. On the morning of the 8th year, the answer arrived in a single afternoon. When she looked back on the silence, she understood something she could not see at the time. The waiting was not punishment. The waiting was custody. Heaven was keeping her promise safe. And that is what I want to say to you, chosen one. The silence you have mistaken for distance was the sound of a father guarding what he could not yet release to you. Now, before I take us any deeper, I want to ask you something directly. Some people leave halfway through messages like this. Tonight I am asking you, gently, to stay with me all the way to the end. Here is what is waiting for you if you do. You will hear the 3-question test that tells you whether a season of waiting is delay or protection. The test most chosen ones never learn and grieve the wrong thing for years because of it. You will meet a third figure whose seal completely reframes what 2026 is actually doing in your life. And at the closing of this message, I am going to speak a specific word over your year that I believe will stay with you long after you leave this space. None of that arrives if you leave early. Stay with me. Now I want to take you to a man who lived this exact pattern thousands of years before you did. His name was Joseph. Picture him for a moment. A young man, 17 years old, full of dreams that did not yet have language to explain themselves. His brothers, The ones who were supposed to love him threw him into an empty well and left him there in the dark. The cold of the stone walls, the dust in his throat, the voices of his own blood walking away above him while he could do nothing, and then sold, carried across a desert in chains, bought by a stranger in a country whose language he did not speak, and just when the dust seemed to settle, accused of something he did not do and locked in an Egyptian prison. For 13 years, this is the life Joseph lives. 13 years sealed away from everything that looked like promise, sealed in the well, sealed in the chains, sealed in the prison, and every single year, the dreams he had at 17 sat on the other side of a door he could not open. And then one morning the seal cracks. A dream comes to a king. The king needs an interpreter. A name is whispered in his ear. The door of the prison opens, and the same hands that were bound the day before are now wearing a signet ring of authority over the second highest position in Egypt. Listen to what was actually happening during those 13 years. The seal was not punishment. The seal was positioning. The well was preparing his humility. The slavery was preparing his work ethic. The prison was preparing the very meeting the dream needed. The seal kept him exactly where he needed to be until the exact second the kingdom had a vacancy with his name on it. This is your first answer to the title of this message. Your Father locks blessings when he is preparing the carrier, not punishing the carrier. The lock around your 2026 season has nothing to do with whether you are worthy. It has everything to do with whether the right doors have opened on the other side of you. And here is the practical piece I want to give you while we are still in the daylight. There is a difference between a season of delay and a season of protection, and most chosen ones cannot tell them apart, which is why most of them grieve the wrong thing for years longer than they need to. There is a simple test. 3 questions you can ask yourself, and the answers will tell you which kind of season you are in. I am going to walk you through the first version of it right here, and then in a few minutes, I will deepen it so you can use it for the rest of your year. The first question: when you imagine actually receiving what you have been asking for, do you feel ready, or do you feel a quiet tremor inside you that says you are not yet who you would need to be to hold it? If there is a tremor, you are not in delay. You are in formation. The second question: when you look at the people who received what you asked for first, can you honestly say they have stewarded it well, or have you watched some of them crumble under the weight of what they were not prepared to carry? If you have watched the crumbling, your seal is not denial. Your seal is mercy. The third question: when you look at the version of yourself from 1 year ago, are you exactly the same person, or has something quietly been forming inside you during the silence? If something has been forming, the lock around your blessing was never the obstacle. The lock was the workshop. Now hold those 3 answers for a moment, because everything we are uncovering tonight is one piece of a much larger body of work that has been mapped out over decades by a researcher who studied exactly what happens to the human mind during these kinds of seasons. Some of his earliest work was on what he called the youthful brain, the state a person carries before the silence begins to settle in. That is its own conversation for another day. Tonight, we stay with the lock. And before this message ends, I am going to speak something specific over your 2026 path that I believe will stay with you long after you leave this space. So do not move from where you are sitting. We are only on the first layer. Now let me take you to a second figure, because the lock is too important to leave at one example. His name was Daniel. Daniel was a man in his 80s, a man who had served kings for most of his adult life, a man whose only crime was that he refused to stop praying. The officials of the kingdom wrote a decree designed to trap him. The king signed it without understanding what he was signing. And Daniel, knowing exactly what was about to happen, opened the same window he opened every day and prayed anyway. That night, they brought him to a den of lions. The mouth of the den was a wide stone. The king himself pressed his signet ring into wet clay and sealed it across that stone. Now, listen to me carefully, because the Hebrew word used in that exact passage is one of the most misunderstood words in the entire Bible. The word is chatham. C-H-A-T-H-A-M. In ordinary English, when we say a thing is sealed, we picture it as blocked off, trapped, cut away. But chatham, in covenant Hebrew, does not mean blocked. It means authenticated. It means a king has personally placed his signature on this object to prove that it belongs to him and is under his protection. The seal was not a tomb. The seal was a signature. When the king who reluctantly sealed Daniel into that den could not sleep that night, when he ran to the mouth of the den at the first light of morning, when he cracked open the seal he himself had placed, the man who walked out was not the same Daniel who had walked in. The man who walked out had been authenticated. The seal had become his receipt, and the next thing the king did was promote him. Do you hear what I am telling you? The seal over your life that has felt like silence, that has felt like denial, that has felt like distance, was never your father blocking you off. It was your father authenticating you, stamping his signature on the gift you have been carrying, marking you as belonging to him so that nothing of this world could touch what he has reserved for you. What looked like Joseph's failure was actually his positioning. What looked like Daniel's death sentence was actually his promotion. What looked like your delay was actually your authentication. What looked like your isolation was actually your custody. What looked like silence was actually signature. And now let me give you the deeper version of those three questions, because once you understand that a seal is a signature, the questions change shape. Ask yourself the first one this way now. Is the season I am in trying to stop me, or is it trying to confirm me? Stopping is from the enemy. Confirming is from the Father. Ask yourself the second one this way. Has anything been added to my character during this season that I would not have wanted to learn the easy way? If yes, the seal has been doing its work. And ask yourself the third one this way. When the door finally opens, who walks out? Is it the same person who walked in, or has someone been formed in the dark whose name and weight the world has not yet met? That person, the one being formed, is the one your 2026 belongs to. So here is the deeper answer to the lock. Your Father locks blessings because the seal is the authentication of who you are about to become. The lock is the workshop. The shield is the signature. And the season of 2026 is the moment the king walks to the door at dawn. Before I take you to the third and final layer of what locked actually means, I want to pause for a moment, because there is a piece on the physical side of this that you deserve to hear about while we are still in the daylight of what we have learned tonight. When a season like the one you have been walking through has lasted for years, something quiet happens inside the human brain. The frequencies that allow you to receive what is coming, the frequencies that allow you to hold what gets handed to you, can dim under the weight of waiting. A neuroscientist named Dr. Robert Lake spent 34 years of his life building a tool for exactly this state. It is called the Genius Song. It is 7 minutes of carefully calibrated sound that, according to research measured at Princeton and other leading universities, brings those dimmed frequencies back online without you having to do anything but listen. If your spirit is already telling you, that is the support your mind needs. As you walk into your 2026 season, the door for it is in the description and the pinned comment below. You do not need to rush. You can stay with me for the rest of this message and decide later. But the door is there if you are ready. For the rest of you, stay with me, because the deepest layer of what locked actually means is still ahead, and it is not what you think. There is a third figure that the title of this message has been pointing to all along, and when I show you who he is, you are going to understand for the first time why 2026 is the specific year your father has sealed for this unveiling. It is not Joseph. It is not Daniel. They were the rehearsals. They were the patterns being practiced in human stories so that when the third figure stepped forward, you would have the language to recognize what was happening. And here is what I want you to hold on to as we close the first half of this message. Joseph and Daniel are not the deepest example of a divine lock. There is one more. And when you see who he is, the meaning of the title of this message changes from a comforting promise into something far more personal, something that has your name on it. So, do not leave this seat. Take a breath if you need one. And when you come back to me for the second half, the very first thing I am going to show you is the moment the seal was being broken. Not Joseph's seal, not Daniel's seal, yours. Stay with me, chosen one. The door is opening. Chosen one, you came back. That alone is part of the unsealing. Take a breath with me and settle back into the seat you were in when we left off. The first half of this message walked you through Joseph and Daniel, and I told you there was a third figure waiting in this story. A figure whose seal would reframe everything you have ever believed about your 2026 season. I am about to show you who he is. And after that, I want you to be ready, because the meaning of the title of this message is going to shift forever in the next few minutes. On the night of Passover, 2,000 years ago, a man hung on a cross until he could no longer breathe. They took his body down. They carried it to a tomb cut out of the rock face of a hill. They rolled a stone the size of a doorway across the entrance. And then listen to me carefully, because scripture does not let you skip past this next part. The soldiers of Rome sealed it. The same word again, the same authentication. For 3 days, every eye in heaven and every eye on earth watched that seal. Joseph had been sealed for Egypt. Daniel had been sealed for Babylon. But this one, this third sealing, was different. Because the man inside that tomb was not being preserved for promotion inside a kingdom that already existed. He was being preserved for a kingdom that had not yet been born. And on the third morning, the seal cracked open from the inside. Now I want you to hold that picture. And I want you to hear what I am about to say very slowly. Because once you understand it, you cannot ununderstand it. The seal over your life was never about a gift being kept from you. The seal was about you being kept. Joseph was a man being kept until Egypt needed him. Daniel was a man being kept until Babylon needed him. And the third figure was a man being kept until a whole new world needed him. And the seal was you. The lock was you. The shield was you. The blessing of 2026 is not an envelope being handed over a wall to your waiting arms. The blessing of 2026 is you walking out of the tomb you have been kept inside. And listen, because the Father is speaking right now, and I want you to hear what he is saying. I did not lock a gift away from you. I locked you away inside it, so that when the seal finally broke, you would walk out as the gift. That is the meaning of the title of this message. That is why 2026. That is why the silence had to be this long. The thing that was being formed in the dark was you. Take a breath with me. What I just told you is too important to rush past. Hear me declare 3 things over you. You are a sealed one. Not abandoned, not forgotten, not delayed, sealed, stamped, authenticated, marked as belonging to the Father in a way no enemy of your life has ever been allowed to touch. You are a trusted carrier. The reason your season has been longer than the seasons of people around you is not because you are slower. It is because what you are being given to carry has a different weight on it. Heaven does not entrust a heavier blessing to a person who has not been formed for it. And you are a threshold walker. The version of you who walks into the first morning of 2026 is not the version of you who has been waiting. There is a new texture in your name that has been forming all through the silence. And hear me on this next part. You are not sealed against the world. You are sealed for the world. You are not sealed to be hidden. You are sealed to be sent. The shield over your life was never built to keep you in. It was built to keep you intact until you could be sent into the place that has been holding its breath for you to arrive. Here is what that looks like in the first 90 days of 2026 inches, the natural realm. The first shift you will notice is visibility increasing. people you have been quiet around for years are suddenly going to see you again. Conversations that did not happen are going to happen. Names that did not get mentioned are going to get mentioned in rooms where it matters. The second shift is decisions arriving with a clarity you have not felt in a long time. Choices that used to take you weeks of agonizing will arrive already answered inside you. The certainty will be in your bones when the moment shows up. And the third shift is doors opening before you have to knock on them. Opportunities that, in the old season, you would have had to chase, will walk toward you and stand in front of you, waiting to be acknowledged. Now I hear a voice in many of you right now whispering the same old question. What if this is wishful thinking? What if I am just telling myself a story to feel better? Listen to me carefully. That voice is the part of you that got comfortable inside the waiting story. The waiting story knew its lines. It had a familiar shape. The part of you that learned to survive inside the lock is afraid of who you become on the other side of it. I am not asking that part of you to be silent. I am asking you not to obey it tonight. Before I show you what your mind needs to actually do on the physical side to walk into what 2026 is bringing, because I am going to show you, there is one more piece of the lock that almost every chosen one misses, even after the reveal you just received. This piece is the part that turns the unsealing from something you witness into something you actually live inside. Stay with me. It is right here. Let me say what we have actually covered, in plain words, because I want you to leave this message knowing exactly what you walked away with. Here is the why. For the last little while, you and I have walked through the meaning of a word that Scripture uses 3 times in 3 of its most important moments. The word is seal. In ordinary English, it sounds like denial. In covenant Hebrew, it means authentication. And the reason that matters for your life is this. The season that has felt like denial has actually been the season of your authentication. The thing you thought was God ignoring you was God placing His signature on you. Here is the what. Starting tomorrow morning, when the old questions come back, and they will come back, you have 3 questions to ask in return. Is this season trying to stop me, or is it trying to confirm me? Has anything been added to my character during this season that I would not have wanted to learn the easy way? And when the door finally opens, who walks out? Those 3 questions are now yours. They are simple, they are practical, and they will protect you from grieving the wrong thing for the rest of this year. And here is the who. The version of you sitting in this seat right now is not the same version that pressed play on this message. You are a sealed one, a trusted carrier, a threshold walker for 2026. That is not a feeling. That is the identity you are walking through the door with. Now remember earlier when I mentioned the Genius song. It is time to walk you through exactly what it is, because the rest of this message gives it the meaning it needs. For 34 years, Dr. Robert Lake studied what happens to the human mind when a person crosses out of childhood. What he documented, and what researchers at MIT and Princeton and other leading universities later confirmed, is that there is a specific frequency in the brain called gamma. Dr. Lake calls it the God-given frequency, because it is the frequency a child carries naturally, the one that lets them learn languages quickly and trust the world deeply. He and other researchers also documented what they call the decline effect, the slow dimming of that frequency from around age 7 onward, under the weight of an education system that was never built to keep it lit. Over 18,000 people have now worked through what he created to bring that frequency back online, and fewer than 4 out of every 100 have asked for a refund. And listen, because this part is for you specifically. Chosen ones carry that frequency as part of how they were knit together in the first place. The reason you have always felt different from the people around you, the reason you have always known there was more to you than the surface, is because the frequency in you was meant to stay lit. What the decline effect dimmed in everyone else, it was supposed to dim in you too. Heaven has been working on the door back. A woman wrote in some months ago, A manager at a financial firm, 47 years old, who had been using what Dr. Lake created for 18 days and almost asked for a refund because nothing dramatic had happened. She decided to give it 2 more weeks out of pure curiosity. On day 34, she realized the fog she had lived in for years was simply gone. A decision at work she would have agonized over for a month had arrived already answered. Her sleep had become deep for the first time in years. The change had not come as a moment. The change had come as a tide. Now I know what some of you are thinking, because I would be thinking it too. You have tried things before. Meditation, sound bowls, subscriptions that promised something and gave very little. Hear me. The reason this is in a different category is mechanical. Meditation asks your brain to change itself from the inside, which is slow and uncertain. Brain entrainment changes the frequency from the outside, and you can measure it on a machine inside a laboratory. That is not a claim. That is a reading. And I would never disrespect your financial situation by pretending $39 is nothing. For some of you, that money matters. So let me walk you through what it actually buys. The tool is called the Genius Song. 7 minutes. Headphones. Closed eyes, if you can. That is all. Most chosen ones with this kind of season have already spent more than $39 trying to find their way back. A meditation subscription runs about $15 a month, and most people pay for it for years. A single therapy session, about $150. A weekend retreat, between $400 and $800. Biofeedback clinics that work directly with brainwaves run around $300 per session, with weeks of repeated visits. None of those target gamma specifically. The original price of what Dr. Lake created was $49. Tonight, because of a decision he made directly with this audience in mind, you can step through this door for $39, and that price is not listed anywhere else on the internet. What you walk away with for that $39 is the audio itself, plus 4 bonuses he asked be included for free. A track he calibrated for children called Genius Child, valued at $19. The original book that the film The Secret was inspired by, valued at $20. A guided visualization across 4 areas of life, valued at $29. And a small printable infographic of the 5 daily habits people who hold their frequency tend to live by, valued at $12. $80 of additional material, free, on top of a $39 core. And a 90-day guarantee that lets you keep every dollar of those 80 in bonuses, even if you ask for the refund. Your financial risk on this is, by design, 0. And while I am here, I want to say one thing about timing. Every day your frequency stays dimmed is a day the prayers that 2026 is preparing arrive into a mind that cannot fully receive them. Every conversation that requires the version of you that has been forming in the dark is a conversation that gets delayed when the door stays half opened. The future version of you, the one who has already crossed the threshold, is watching this moment with affection. The decision does not need to be perfect. It only needs to be real. The only thing required is the first step. One thing I want to be direct about, because I would say this to my own family. The real version of this is in the description and in the pinned comment below. There are imitations out there, and some of them have used Dr. Lake's name without his permission. What was sealed for you should not be received from someone counterfeiting the source. Use only the door I have placed below. If your spirit is bearing witness, the door is in the description and the pinned comment. Follow only if you feel led. We will continue together either way. And know this, the Genius Song is the first door. Dr. Lake's larger body of work covers far more than today's message can hold. There is work he has done under the name Destiny's Embrace that addresses what comes after this first door. But that is for another conversation. Now let me bring you back to the spiritual side, because the tool is the support. The unsealing was already done in heaven. Let me show you what walks out of the lock with you. What felt like a delay was actually authentication. What felt like silence was actually signature. What felt like absence was actually proximity. What felt like loss was actually formation. The full meaning of 2026 is not the year you receive your blessing. The full meaning of 2026 is the year your blessing receives you, because you have finally become the version of yourself that the gift was always shaped to fit. And the Father is saying this exact thing to you right now. Listen, this year is not the gift. You are the gift. The years ahead are simply the unfolding of what I sealed. Now I want to take you into one short moment of inner work before we move into the closing. You do not need to close your eyes if you are driving. You do not need to move anything in your body. Just let a picture form inside your mind while I describe it. There is a chamber inside you, a small room where you have been kept for the length of this season. The walls are made of every silent night, every unanswered prayer, every moment you waited and wondered if anyone was listening. There is a door on the far wall, and your name is written across the front of it. I want you to picture yourself standing in front of that door right now. The seal that was on it has already been broken. You can see the line where the wax cracked. Now imagine yourself placing your hand on that door, feeling the weight of all the years it kept you, and stepping through. Feel the door close behind you. You are not going back inside that chamber. Whatever weight was on your shoulders from the waiting season is staying on the other side of that door. You step forward into a wider room. The air is different. The light is different. Heaven is watching you arrive. Take one breath. That breath is the first breath of who you are on the other side of the seal. Now let me bring this message to the place it has been heading the whole time. Pause for a moment with me. Acknowledge in your spirit what just happened tonight. You arrived at this message carrying a weight you have been carrying for a long time, and somewhere over the last little while, that weight changed shape. It is no longer the punishment you thought it was. It is the authentication you did not know you were receiving. Picture the weight of the waiting season on your shoulders right now. Let it fall. Let it sit on the ground at your feet. Step over it. Walk forward sealed and now unsealed. You do not have to pick it back up. You do not have to apologize to it. It served its purpose. And the version of you that needed to be formed inside it is no longer there. And hear the Father saying this to you. Go. The seal is broken. The shield is now your inheritance, not your barrier. Walk into 2026 as the one I sealed for this hour. You carry the defense of heaven not behind glass, not as a borrowed object, but as the very texture of who you are. You are a heaven-defended heir. The protection that was around you is now inside you, and there is nothing in the year ahead that the Father has not already prepared you to walk through. And all across the world, tonight, other chosen ones are walking through this exact same unsealing. Some of them you will meet in 2026 inches, ways neither of you can yet imagine. You will recognize each other by the texture in your name that only those who have been sealed can carry. It is sealed. Take one breath in the silence. If you have walked through this closing with me, something has shifted that cannot be undone. I want you to type something in the comments below. Type, I am sealed for 2026. Say it with the full weight of who you have become tonight, and let those words be your declaration before heaven. If this message brought clarity to confusion, if it brought peace to chaos, if it brought confirmation to what you have been feeling for months but could not name, let your like be your amen without words. And stay close to this space, because the next word your Father is preparing for your 2026 walk will find you here. One last thing. As I have been speaking, there is a face that has been forming in your mind. Someone who has been unusually quiet lately. Someone whose 2026 also begins with a seal they cannot yet see. Someone whose name just rose inside you while I was speaking. Send this to them however you need to. A text, an email, a link. If even one chosen one walks through their own unsealing, because of your obedience, your share becomes part of their door opening. And if the tool we walked through is meant for you, the door is in the description and in the pinned comment below. Take the step only if you feel led. Some of you will find yourselves drawn into what Dr. Lake has done under the name Destiny's Embrace in the months ahead. But that moment is not today. Today is the seal opening. Walk into 2026. Sealed and unsealed. Chosen one. The door is open. The Father is at the threshold. And you are exactly who He said you would be.